Hello everyone, and once again welcome to Economics Unplugged with Praful Raj. My name is Praful Raj, and my channel is about the insightful conversation with the economists and professors about the Indian economy. Today, our special guest is Dr. Arpita Mukherjee. She is a professor in Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. For over 25 years, she has served as an economic policy researcher within various government organizations across the world, including United States, UK, Australia, and among others. Throughout her extensive career, she has built an impressive portfolio of over 75 plus publications, which includes books, journals, newsletter, and government reports. So today we will talk on the India's foreign trade policy. So thank you so much for joining for this conversation, ma'am. So basically today we'll talk about the India's foreign trade policy. Since you have a great expertise in that over a period of 25 years. So with that, I'll start with talking about the new foreign trade policy that was released this year in March 2023. So like, how do you analyze in terms of visibility and particularly with regards to the goal of achieving $2 trillion in exports by 2030?
So basically, Praful, this year's foreign trade policy is a little different from the previous foreign trade policies. So previously, it used to be a 5-year foreign trade policy. And then you may remember that for some time, we were not able to come up with a foreign trade policy because the incentives that were given were export-linked incentives. And they were challenged by the US, and we lost the case against the US. Because they were not WTO compliant. Now, this is something which you need to think a little bit, because WTO compliant incentives means that you cannot give any incentives that are export linked. That is actually prohibited incentive under the WTO. The foreign trade policy was earlier giving enough of them for the goods sector. Now, the services sector, there is no discipline on subsidies in services. So you can actually continue to give incentives. So this is the global scenario. And in this global scenario, if a country reaches a per capita income of a certain level for a certain number of years, the country can no longer give export-linked incentives. Even if a country gives an export-linked incentive in a sector, it is called an actionable subsidy. Like, other countries can countervail your duties. You will see, if you look at the WTO website, you will see that India is the second largest, almost in context of getting countervailing duty, where that our trade after China, but our trade is not that big. So you try to see that this is a scenario where the government had to first kind of clean up the subsidy regime. And this foreign trade policy tried to do that. It did not give a new subsidy. It tried to give a WTO compliant subsidy so that you have lesser chance of being countervailed or prohibited. And now that now we are in a situation where the dispute is not working properly because of the judges and everything, as in students in US knows about the mess that WTO is in. But having said that, this foreign trade policy did not have an end date. It is a continuing policy. It had a vision that, of reaching certain trade targets. It also had a vision that it would create the subsidy regime in a way that you first get a subsidy, then you face a countervailing duty. That kind of situation doesn't arise. So then what it wants to do, it has certain new things. Like, for the first time, it has a new chapter on e-commerce, and it talks about e-commerce export and enhancing e-commerce export, talking about capacity building. So this is something new in this foreign trade policy. It also talks about trading in rupee. That's again something new, which actually, yeah, and that's something very, very new. And we are also trying to understand how it works, the implications, etc. It also, last year was not a bad year for India. In fact, we did well in terms of trade. It also talks about a lot of procedural clearances. So the more of the policy is aligned towards trade facilitation rather than giving incentives. So how much you can go online, you have a e-certification of origin platforms and all of that. Like, how much benefit can technology bring to trade? That's
Amnesty,
one part.
amnesty scheme for exporters kind of thing.
Yes.
Remove the all the 20
See, basically,
prohibition.
the schemes, it has not added any new schemes. The ROTAP, etc., the schemes continued. And certain schemes, which were like MEIS, which was challenged by the Americans, have been phased out. So certain schemes were already phased out. It is not related to the foreign trade policy. The foreign trade policy reiterated that these schemes are not going to come back. These schemes which are WTO compliant or probably a gray area in the WTO will continue to stay. So this is how they have kind of designed the entire storyline. And they have also talked about, see, National Trade Facilitation Action Plan is somewhat like the national logistic policies already in place. So it is talking about, the logistic policy to be facilitating a lot of the things, and the soft things like software clearances have been referred here. Now, the other thing it is talking about, and that's kind of has been going on for some time in India, is actually about one district as one product, taking the products of the district, creating GI products of the Indian made products, and all of that. These are not, I would not say they are new schemes or things. They are already there. They are consolidated in one document. But MEIS has been replaced by ROTTEP, the duty remission scheme. Okay, so that is a WTO compliance. So MEIS is gone and ROTTEP is now there. So this is the kind of, it also talks about certain things like recognition of exporters. Like many a times foreign companies say, I don't know who is a good one in India and who is a bad one, and I have a bad experience in India, and this is the problem. They are trying to design some kind of a rating to actually resolve that. But it's these are number of ideas they have floated. Yeah, now, if you want to know what are the gaps, I can also give you some examples.
So before that, I think it's a comprehensive policy. So 2 points which I would like to emphasize on that. First, you talked about WTO problem with giving the export subsidy. Can you explain what exactly, like before that, like Indian businesses who cannot export the good earlier they cannot export the goods and get the subsidy for government. Is it like the same unless some other country has some same kind of tariff and subsidy rate from different country?
No, the WTO has an agreement which is called the WTO Subsidies and Countervailing Duties Agreement. It is called a WTO SCM agreement in short. This agreement says that countries, WTO member countries, are prohibited to give two types of subsidies. One is an export linked subsidy and another is an import substitution subsidy. However, there is a carve out for developing countries with certain level of per capita income lower than that, or LDC. So developing country and LDCs are given time to phase out the subsidy when the agreement was designed. It says that there are other types of subsidies which can be challenged by the importing country, and then there can be an countervailing duty imposed. Now, this kind of subsidies are industry specific subsidies. So I cannot give a subsidy to the industry. Say, I cannot give a textile specific subsidy, or I cannot give a subsidy to a region like SEZs. Now, after the WTO, you will see that developed countries don't have any more SEZs. If you look at the developed country scenario, they don't have SEZs. Developing countries continue to have SEZs. Okay, but zones have been customized and policies are carved in a very, very smart way to kind of circumvent this thing. Okay, now let me tell you how it has been carved and what they are trying to circumvent. There are some gray areas, like if I give a subsidy to inputs, that is a gray area. You have heard a lot that China is subsidizing electricity, right? So there is a lot of gray area. Then there is no discipline on services. So with servicification of manufacturing, I can give as much as subsidies in services as possible. Okay, nobody is not going to challenge me until there is a subsidy discipline in the WTO. So you will see many countries, like if you look at China, if you look at even the US that you are in, they develop logistic parks.
Yes.
So, anything that is called subsidies or with servicification of manufacturing, you have so many subsidies like worker training, this, that, you can subsidize that. Then there are certain things which are related to SMEs, then R&D. No, SME and R&D, every country subsidizes, okay? So basically, it is not like you are prohibited to give subsidies. You have to design WTO smart subsidies. The core part is how you design a WTO smart subsidy.
Yeah, so basically making a comprehensive trade policy with keeping the mind the gray area where you can play around with the subsidies and all. So as you mentioned that India is a medium income country. Lower medium income comes under lower medium income country. So does the India like already I mean given all the subsidies as per the WTO agreement, or it still comes under that per capita income?
No, we are not. We are now actually a very fast moving developing country. So we can see, basically we are now among the emerging markets.
Emerging markets, yes.
So it is better for us Bangladesh will also not be, Bangladesh will also, what you call it, upgrade itself. So, it's not so easy. Many countries are upgrading from LDCs to developing. So I would, as a trade economist, I would think it is much better for countries to rethink and design their subsidies smartly.
Okay.
Rather than, giving it money. See, basically, I'll give you an example. For the industry, something that is easy to claim is what they want. Okay, so MEIS was you export, you get the benefit. So it is very easy to claim. So industry always wants subsidies which is easy to claim. But if you are giving subsidies which are difficult to claim, industry doesn't get it. Okay, but there can be getting a countervailing duty. So any policymakers of any country that is a developing country has a choice between designing the subsidy which is easy to claim and industry feels happy about it vis-a-vis WTO compliance.
So with this, do you think that we can achieve a target of 2 trillion approximately by 2030?
See, a policy doesn't lead to a target. It is if you see, there is many things have to work together. It is like a group dance. Okay, everybody has to perform together to reach that target. Now, this is just a vision plan roadmap. This is what government wants to do. Today, governments spend a lot of money on
infra logistics.
No, government in India doesn't spend a lot of money on infra. Today, globally, I'm telling, government spends a lot of money on marketing and promotional activity. Important is what we are doing. Okay, so now if you have to ask me the question, do you think, yes, it is a step in the right direction, but to achieve the step, let me give you some of the issues that needs to be addressed. One is that marketing and promotion and brand building, this doesn't happen overnight. Secondly, you are talking about when you are looking into manufacturing and working on manufacturing, you are fighting with the world. You are fighting with Vietnam, Thailand. They have done their subsidy regime much before us in the right order. And they have, many countries have, globally the manufacturing hubs are of two types. Many of them have reduced tariffs and many of them have high tariffs. Okay, like Korea has a high tariff like India, and they do lot of FTAs and make it zero tariff. Now, India's FTAs have not been that deep in the past. We have many, but less deep FTAs. So in the partner countries, we are also at a disadvantage. They gave us less. So, so basically your FTAs with whom you are doing, what you are getting, what is the global scenario? Is something like a Russia-Ukraine war an opportunity or a constraint in some sectors? Is the slowdown in the global economy a constraint for exports? How is your, thing next year we have election? How are things politically developing? All of the factors together actually determine export growth. It is domestic policy, external policies, other countries' protectionism, everything has to be brought into a plate.
So since you talk about the of course protectionism is also the thing that India plays in a different way. So to achieve all this thing, as you said, that it's a like a group dance. So to achieve all this, we need to have a good infrastructure, good logistic, good procedural policies, which minimizes the time of to and fro of the papers and all. So all kind of efficient regulations are required for the efficient trade policy. And one more thing, that it is often necessary to reduce the tariff. One of the way to enable manufacturers to lower their costs and compete with the foreign brands, particularly in terms of comes to Taiwan, China, Vietnam. And based on that, as per the World Trade Organization tariff, which was done profiling in 2021, India is one of the highest average tariff. I mean, highest average in terms of weighted average of different products is 15%. And in basically and so what's the rationale behind, like how we say that foreign trade policy which we have today is much comprehensive, much better than what we used to before, and then also raising the tariff to 15%, which was the same tariff was 0% in 2015 in terms of input products like display and camera modules.
See, basically, there are a couple of reasons why countries have high tariff. Okay, as I just said, Korea also has a very high tariff, but it has used its high tariff in a very different way. High tariff can be done for many reasons. You can actually have high tariff so that you encourage. One of the core ideas behind India having high tariff was that if the tariff is high, people will come and invest in India and produce in India. This is applicable for final product, but it is not applicable for intermediate product. Okay.
Intermediate product, yes.
Now the problem is like this. The second problem of secondly, the high tariff is often to stop imports from other countries like China, negative balance, etc. The high tariff can also be as a negotiating strategy that you will give certain things to certain trading partners, the Korea model. Okay, so having a high tariff in itself doesn't allow global value chain is a very naive concept. It is a good concept, but naive. What happened in the India's earlier FTAs? In the earlier FTAs, sometimes you reduce tariff in intermediate product and you kept it high in final product. So therefore, the final product import was happening, intermediate product production was not happening. Since 2014 onwards, the government tried to actually rationalize that. Okay, so one part was that intermediate product had high tariff, which in part impacted us. In 2014 onwards, selective sectors tariff was increased to achieve selective goals. Like, mobile handset, smartphone tariff was increased because smartphone did not come under ITA 1, or that is a gray area for discussion under the Information Technology Agreement, which talked about zero duty for the countries who signed it in the WTO. So then Apple etc. are manufacturing in India. So if you ask some policymakers in India, they will say, wow, that was a very good smart decision. Okay, so I'm trying to say, I'm trying to give you both sides of the story. Having said that, tariff, one is a high tariff, one is every budget you sit and twitter around with the tariff is giving India in industry an uncertain level playing field. And because they are uncertain, you see India doesn't get much investment in manufacturing like other countries do. So, the entire concept is that should you have a high tariff or should you create an uncertainty on the every year union budget? Second point is that if you give China, Vietnam, Taiwan example, example, China, Vietnam, Taiwan, they are very different. When you talk about China tariff, you don't look at, they have used the SEZs, zones. In China, manufacturing zones. These zones are big, and China has been smartly able to integrate the zones with the domestic tariff area. Okay, they allow a certain percentage sale. In India, the biggest problem is that there was a zero tariff route, which is the SEZ. That policy is totally in a limbo. And in India, SEZ 80% was in services. So when Americans challenged it, India could have a separate services SEZ policy and goods SEZ policy. Instead of that, we designed the DESH bill. I think it was a very crudely drafted bill. That is my personal opinion, bringing goods and services together. Every time you bring goods and services together, you have to be very careful what incentive you give to services. If you quietly give incentives to services, it will take another 10 years to be challenged. You understand my concerns? So the entire thought process that, so much services that Indians can deliver, and every service today is becoming, now today we have remote machines that are working. So with automation, we haven't thought, the DESH bill hasn't thought about the fourth IR technology and its impact on manufacturing. It was always thinking about India as a labor-intensive country doing low-end kind of manufacturing. So therefore, my logic is that the other logic, basically what happens, custom duty seems to be a big source of duty earning for India. It seems to be also a big source where Indian industry go and lobby. Now, if somebody goes and lobbies, the guy who is lobbying more somehow survives. Let me give you an example. We import all the raw material of whiskey making. India is one of the largest consumer of whiskey. We import the raw material for whiskey making from the UK. The raw material has 150% tariff. Okay, the final product also has 150% tariff. Now, it is a no-brainer why a raw material intermediate product, which we don't produce in this country, import should have 150% tariff. But there are companies in India and there are associations in India who goes and tells the commerce minister, bargain, don't reduce the tariff at their own cost of future developing a better product. Don't reduce the tariff. Please go ahead and bargain for something else against the tariff. So this is one story. The other story is that if you look at the palm oil value chain, you will see companies want to set up manufacturing facilities in India using that as an ingredient like soap, etc. These companies are thousands of them. But the companies, that one company may be having one unit in India, and this is very common in India in many sectors. One company having one unit keep on going and lobbying to keep the market closed, and it will never be more than 1 to 2 company lobbying. And but the person who wants it to be opened, the companies who want it to be opened, they never speak. Unlike the developed world. In the developed world, both sides speak. So for the government, it is extremely difficult. Only inputs they get is, I want to ask things from the other countries and I don't want to open up. This is the kind of inputs that they don't get a constructive input. So my logic is that when you think about a tariff reduction, and scientific logic is to look at a value chain approach. Who is there in the value chain? Who is gaining? Who is losing? And if you look at this value chain approach, then the tariff reduction can be rationalized but there is nobody. These are the kind of studies that a commerce ministry should have, a trade data analytics center. And the commerce ministry is not thinking of it. They need to do this study. They have to look at the entire value chain and understand that where in the value chain, who is being adversely affected and who will be benefiting, and whether we are going to get investment or not.
Got it. So yeah, yes, of course, there might be a reason of keeping tariffs so high. And of course, since it's a weighted average, so I mean, few, like you talked about whiskey, another product which will have the high import tariff and all. So with that, my third question will be that we have seen that over past 2 years, India has witnessed a significant increase in export numbers, like 36% almost increase year on year in 2021, then around 17% in 2020, year over year, from April 20 to September 22. So this substantial growth, don't you think this the substantial growth for these 2 years was only because of the high consumer spending in other importing countries? Like it might be the case that these high number of export may not be a case for every year.
See, you are actually, doing your analysis based on year-on-year growth. Right? So, COVID, you look at the COVID year. Everything after COVID is a V-shaped recovery. Okay.
Recovery, yes, that's right.
So first point is everything after COVID is a V-shaped recovery. During COVID, India kind of tried to do many new things. Like, we have been trying to be better in the pharmaceutical supply chain. World is moving towards building resilient supply chain. Lot of effort from us at the very senior level of the Prime Minister also to, start trade agreements negotiation, build resilient supply chains, talk to like-minded business partners. These do have a good impact. And of course, the foreign trade policy also looked at the matter, which is, not giving any export link incentives, etc., is something which is appreciated by the developed countries. So there has been a positive vibe, and 100% a lot of effort has gone in to create that positive vibe. Now, to continue with this positive vibe under an uncertain global scenario, the global scenario is uncertain. So it is uncertain global scenario, recessionary tendencies, which can last till 2024 or 25 to continue that positive vibe this year. If you look at the data this year, you will see the exports are a little stumbling. So that you need to now think out of the box. You need to have a SEZ policy in place. You need to now think of the box, diversify your basket, diversify your markets, and see how you can better access other countries. See, the problem is like this. Praful, the problem that we are facing as trade policy experts are India always try to think that what am I going to get in return? Look at the market like UK. It doesn't have a barrier. You understand? Now, if you are doing a trade agreement.
But one question, ma'am, here we cannot compare like UK, US to India, because these are developed.
I know they are developed country, but you are doing your FTAs. I'm talking in the context of the trade agreement. Okay. Yes. I'm not talking in the context of how India should enter Africa market. In the context that your largest market, your export markets are US, UK, EU, correct? These are your export market apart from UAE. But UAE is more of a transshipment hub. UAE is not for self-consumption, correct? So now if you are doing your exports to these markets, US, EU, these markets don't have a major tariff issue. So you are facing non-tariff barrier, 1 point, or ban, second point. Now let us look at the non-tariff barrier, whether you are willing to meet or not. Industry will say it is a major issue, but an exporter is always willing to meet it. When REACH came, everybody said REACH is major issue in the EU, and now they will. Now EU is going into huge, environmental that carbon tax. Now Indian industry has to think how to do. But there is two options. One is to keep on screaming about it. One is to
start doing it.
And today we are fighting with countries like Cambodia, etc., where the government immediately. I was working with India, EU, and basmati rice. Years ago, 10 years ago, when basmati rice, you banned tricyclosol, we used to, in rice, we used to scream the place down, lobby with Pakistan, what is going on doing. Cambodia next day decides, told you, I am going to ban tricyclosol, you give me incentive and subsidy. See, the approach to the problem is very different. And this approach to the problem, we need to understand that, for the second generation Indian and larger of European, they need rice. They don't care whether it is risotto rice, Japanese rice, basmati rice. If you have to operate in that market, you have to be market ready. And you have to invest to be market ready. You can scream. So now it is important for India to actually do a lot of consultation and industry upgradation on sustainable supply chains. Not only exports but sustainable products export. What are they talking about? How to meet that? Not only carbon tax, but they are also talking about sustainable food, no child labor, and entire list of sustainability is there. And Americans are doing this, Japanese are doing this. So that is where we need to look at.
But all this requires money. This sustainable, wherever they work, before anything, if something comes like sustainable climate change, it requires money, research and development. So do you think, like, as of now we have that kind of skilled labor and money? Because if you talk about R&D expenditure, percentage of GDP, India is spending a way less. It's like 0.7, 0.8% every year. So like what do you think? Like, I know, like, we don't have a correct answer or right answer for this, but what do you think, like, in the, because it requires money?
It is not in first, it requires awareness. Praful. Okay. First, I'll give you example step by step. Tell me, which country did such a gala G20 event?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. We have
you have seen G20 in developed countries, right? Yes. Which country has been able to showcase their country from Andaman to Nicobar to Arunachal Pradesh? So yes. Where is the money problem? I don't get it. We are an emerging market. Industry has they have money. If you are exporting, importing, it is in your interest. I don't see a shortage of money.
I see a shortage of intention.
Yes, it is. It is a shortage of intention and a shortage of planning. If you do not plan and put your money in the right basket, you are going to be impacted. Yes. I am absolutely amazed at the galaness of the. I don't think India has a shortage of money.
That we everyone knows that we don't have a shortage of money. Even only 3% of people paying a tax, and everything is happening on that in India.
No, so it is not about 3% of the people paying tax. Try to understand.
So I'm saying that in spite of that, we have so much of money. In spite,
the point is not about 3% of the people paying tax. Why is 3% of the people paying tax is the question. Taxes and subsidies. You are giving so much subsidies under PLI. Okay, for production. Have you linked that subsidy to sustainability?
That's true.
If you had linked it to sustainability, industries would beat it, right?
Yes, more. I mean, at least
so it is not about the money. I am talking about better utility. I am not telling you to spend extra money, Praful. I am saying that money is. Do you think Cambodia?
No, of course, less than us.
They are actually designing the subsidy schemes and regimes to the requirement of the time and age. So if I am spending on food, I can spend on sustainable food, nutritious food, food linked with what is expected and deliverable. Just not any food.
That's not.
You understand? Yes, so that is where if you make it a criteria, you know how many subsidies India give. Do you have any idea how many subsidies, how many types of subsidies do India give?
Probably there are more than 100 types of subsidies.
No, not 100. Over 300. I counted till 300.
Oh, over 300. Yeah.
Types by center and state, because we have 28 states. Imagine this many subsidies, and most of the time, if you ask industry, they will say, I am not aware. Yes. So it is not about giving money. It is not about being poor. It is about
planning,
pushing people in the right direction, pushing this country in the right direction. And I think one of the misses of the foreign trade policy is to future sustainability. Talk about sustainability.
With all the approaches. Also, since we talked about state, so like in 2021 of your paper, you examined the role of public sector enterprises in meeting the geo strategies, interest and export targets. So how have Indian public sector organization or enterprises have fared in the face of the challenge you identified while you're working on this paper? Like how they have faced the challenges, and can they have that then can they help India to create a strength trade relation with the partners by maybe setting up the offices abroad or something like that?
See, see, basically, India has the largest number of public sector enterprises after China. Okay, but there are certain Chinese strategies that we looked into the paper, as well as, there are three things here which you have to understand. First, how entire role of public sector enterprise is going to work. Previously it was government procurement. Now government procurement, India is not a member of the government procurement agreement, but now government procurement is being discussed in the trade agreements, and you and others are very anti against these public sector enterprises. So you have to about while they are very interested in critical mineral supply chain. See, now look at the trade, how it is evolving. The trade is not evolving like public sector enterprises. It is evolving like critical mineral supply chain. You are discussing that part. You are talking about climate smart. So your public sector enterprise have to fit into that. First point. You have a number of public sector enterprises. Some are making profit, some are not making profit, some are in areas. You have to really think at a country level, do I need a public sector hotel?
No, not really.
Or do I need a public sector company for my oil, natural gas, critical mineral?
Yes.
So that is the thought process. Like there is also a thought process in India also, and that is taking up, like they wanted to give away LIC, right? They have already, Air India has already been. So there is a concept within the country also that where there is a not that an urgent necessity need, we need to actually exit out of a public sector enterprise and concentrate on public sector enterprise at a critical mineral, critical strategy, this, that. Now, that is the overall country vision for public sector enterprise. Okay.
So yeah. So it's basically, I mean, so do you? So
this is the first point. Now I have not answered your question. Now I will come to your question. Actually, I am just giving you the background because I first realized that if I go SCM type, it is difficult. Now you come to what are the issues they face. They face the issue any government enterprise face. Which is like if they have to appoint somebody, the appointment letter is sitting in the ministry for 6 months. I will give you an example. We did recently a study for Invest India. They floated a quote. I did a study. For 2 years, the study is pending because they can't take any decisions. They have to wait for DPIIT to read the paper, and DPIIT does not have time. So there is a problem with the public sector enterprise. And the problem is that the delays happen because they have to, for each step they move, they have to take a permission.
So they have enough resources also. Enough people.
So they for employing a people for doing. Now then there is a China strategy in India. Now when we have 3 or 4 public sector enterprises created in one area, let's say oil, and I'm not giving you the names, or critical mineral. There may be some mineral when there is one public sector enterprise. There is some mineral where there is multiple public sector enterprise. I'll give you 2 examples. In multiple public sector enterprise, what is happening is Indian farms, 3 or 4 of them are bidding in the same place in Africa. So unfortunately, they are not only competing among the Chinese and the others, they are competing among themselves.
Yes.
So there has to be a structured bidding strategy. In some cases, there are 1 or 2 public sector enterprises. Like for example, let us take the case of zinc. Hindustan Zinc is the largest player. When we did the trade agreement with countries like Korea, etc., we gave 0 steel. We gave 0. to these trading partners. Then there is a big rush that we have lost the market. We gave zero after a phasing. They gave zero immediately. We are largest producer of zinc. Why are we not able to be competitive in our own market, and they can import and they don't even produce zinc? Korea doesn't even produce zinc. It is importing and using smelters. So own productivity and efficiency. It is very important for being competitive to have their own productivity and efficiency. Okay, that needs to be enhanced through various measures. It can be automation. It can be reducing staff and cost. So there are many issues, and I'm giving you the issues with number. You can see that India gave zero duty to Korea. Korea gave India zero duty at the start of the agreement. They don't produce it. We gave it in a phased manner. Yet they captured the entire world and our market.
Correct.
So private sector sometimes are very, very efficient. And public sector is not. When the public sector has to be made at part in a globally competitive world, you have to be first made competitive, and that is the analysis that we need to do. How to enhance the how to reduce the numbers of public sector enterprises, how to enhance their competitiveness, how to give them more independence if need be to enhance their competitiveness.
So basically, in short, like according to your opinion, personal opinion, we have almost everything. It's just we need a proper planning. We need independence, better productivity, and sustainability, and also the competition among the even the private players or the public sector organizations. So
1 minute, Praful, I have one more important point which you missed, is that from services sector exports, when you're talking 2 trillion, 1 trillion is coming from services. From services sector export to public sector enterprises, do we have a vision, plan, and strategy? We don't. So we need to create one. Without a vision, plan, and strategy, you can have very good ideas, but how do you monitor? What is your target? How do you monitor? And how do you implement? And in a country like India, where there is central public sector enterprise, state private sector enterprise, how do you coordinate?
I think this foreign trade policy is kind of it's tricky. It's not so simple as we think. But yes, probably we are going in a phase of developing each and every trade policy. And I'm talking on trade policy for the third time. Last time I also talked with Dr. Partha Chatterjee. He's a professor in Shivda University. So this conversation was very interesting, ma'am. And I think it was quite technical. Probably people from a different background, they will understand, and they if they don't understand, they can comment on the YouTube video and I will make them understand. But it was quite informative. So thank you so much, ma'am, for coming to my channel. Hope we will do some more in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Praful. And if there is a query, and if there is a query to the in your channel, if there is a response to query section, I will, if you give me the link, I will also help you to respond.